Next slide, criminal law. What is criminal law? Criminal law defined as a branch or division of law that defines crimes, threats of their nature, and provides for their punishment. From the definition itself, criminal law is only one of those many branches of law na meron sa Pilipinas. Hindi lang criminal law. Meron tayong procedural law and marami pang iba. Now, how criminal law differs from other kinds of law. So, yan po ay nasa definition na. Isa-isahin natin. Sa criminal law, una, nagdi-define ng crime. Pangalawa, threats of their nature. Pangatlo, provides for their punishment. Ngayon, isa-isahin natin yung explanations. When we say defines crime, dito nakasulat kung paano makukumit yung isang crime. Halimbawa, dinidefine niya yung isang crime, no? Halimbawa, let's say, homicide. Yung revised penal code is nakapaloob sa criminal law. So, yung homicide, dinefine doon, it is a killing of a one person. So, ibig sabihin, kapag dinidefine ng law yung crime, that is criminal law. Pangalawa, threats of their nature. When we say threats of their nature, we are referring to the elements and requisites of each crime. Halimbawa, kapag sabihin natin, kasi yung homicide and murder, parehong dinidefine as a killing of a person. Ngayon, magkaiba. Paano naging magkaiba yon? Ito ay based on the elements and requisites of each crime that makes them different from each other. Sa paano talaga makukumit ang murder by their own nature. That is written on the elements and requisites. Pangatlo is provides for their punishment. Of course, kapag ka-define mo yung crime, kung paano mo siya makukumit, laging merong punishment yan. Hindi mo makukonsider na criminal lang isang act kapag ka walang katumbas na punishment doon. An act without katumbas na punishment ay hindi mo masasabing criminal. So that is how are you going to differ criminal law from other kinds of law. Kapag wala yung isa dyan, ay hindi na siya matatawag na criminal law. Ulitin ko, dapat laging present yung tatlo. First, it defines crime. Second, threats of their nature. Pangatlo, provides for their punishment. Kapag kayong isa dyan, kahit ano dyan ay wala, hindi siya matatawag na criminal law. Now, question, is criminal law substantive or public by nature? What is the answer? Let's now define muna yung substantive law. When we say substantive, the law is providing rights and obligations of individual. Substantive law refers to all categories of public and private law, including the law of contracts, real property, torts, and criminal law. Doon na sa definition and criminal law. So, ibig sabihin, criminal law is substantive. Bakit? Kasi, ang substantive law po, sabi, ito ay nag-provide ng rights and obligations. Kapag nakasulat doon yung mga rights and obligations and mga penalties, that is substantive. Okay? Kapag sinabi naman nating public, it is a type of law governing the conduct of public bodies. It is a set of rules that governs the relationships between private individuals or private organizations. So, sabi natin kanina, yung revised penal code ay under ng nakapaloob sa criminal law. Ngayon, yung criminal law ba ay nag-define ng crime and nag-provide ng punishment? The answer is yes. So, basically, criminal law is substantive. But, public ba? The answer is yes, kasi the revised penal code are sets of rules na nag-govern between the relationship of public organizations or private organization. So basically, criminal law is both substantive and public by nature, but not procedural. Bakit hindi siya procedural? Kasi procedural is the due process of law. Kaya tinawag siyang procedural. Kasi nga, it is the due process of law. Pag sinabi nating procedural, ang ginugovern niya dito kung paano ma-administer yung substantive law. Paano ma-administer yung substantive law? It prescribes the methods of enforcing the rights and obligations of substantive law. Ulitin ko, pag sa substantive law, dinidefine niya yung rights, duties, and obligations of citizens. And nagbibigay din siya ng punishment. Nagpro-provide siya ng punishment for the crimes na nakadefine doon sa criminal law. While sa procedural law, it is the methods of enforcing the rights and obligations of substantive law. Dito nakapaloob yung paraan kung paano mo i-administer yung substantive law, and that is procedural law. The proper steps, ito yung mga proper steps of the law enforcement, kung ano yung mga dapat nilang sundin in administering the substantive law. So, maliwanag po tayo doon that the criminal law is both substantive and public by nature but not procedural. Gets? Next is crime. How do we define crime? Crime, an act committed or omitted in violation of public law forbidding or commanding it. From the definition itself, an act committed or omitted. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Ibig sabihin, there are two ways kung paano ka makakapag-commit ng crime. Una, through action, and pangalawa, by omission. Through action means an act must be an overt act or external act which has direct connection with the felony intended to be committed. The act must be external because internal acts are beyond the sphere of law. Ibig sabihin, meron kang ginawa na hindi mo dapat ginawa dahil ipinagbabawal ng batas. Merong overt act, merong external act, at hindi internal acts. Kasi pag sinabi nating internal acts, ito yung beyond the sphere of law. Pag sinabi nating sphere of law, yung kapag ka iniisip mo pa lang siyang gawin, pinaplano mo pa lang siyang gawin, pero hindi mo pa nagagawa yung action or hindi ka pa nakakapag-produce ng overt act dun sa pinaplano mo. Like for example, gusto mong pumatay ng tao and talagang galit na galit ka, pinaplano mo na patayin yung isang tao. You have a criminal thought of killing someone. Pero kahit gaano pa ka-immoral or improper yung thought mo na yun, hindi yun magko-constitute ng felony. Kasi upang makapag-commit ka ng crime, kailangan merong overt act. Naintindihan? Pangalawa is yung by omission. Karamihan sa atin, ang alam lang para makapag-commit ka ng crime, kailangan meron kang ginawang action. Like for example, pumatay ka, nagnakaw ka, nang hold up ka, nang peke ka ng pera, ganyan-ganyan. Meron kang kailangang gawin para makapag-commit ka ng crime. Pero meron pa palang isang paraan, and that is by omission. Omission is meant in action. The failure to perform a positive duty which one is bound to do. Kung dun sa una, yung true action, sinasabi na nakakapag-commit ka ng crime kapag meron kang ginawang isang bagay na hindi mo dapat ginawa. Dito naman sa omission, wala kang ginawa na dapat ay ginawa mo. Naiintindihan ba? Ulitin ko pag sinabing by omission, wala kang ginawa. Okay? Sabihin, nakakapag-commit ka rin pala ng crime pag wala kang ginagawa. Like for example, yung pagbabayad ng buwis, okay? Yung law, nire-require niya ang bawat isa to pay our taxes, and it is your responsibility to do it. Ngayon, kapag hindi ka nagbayad ng buwis mo, kapag hindi ka nag-comply dun sa sinasabi ng batas na dapat mong gawin, you will held criminally liable. Another example of by omission is yung Article 275, Paragraph 1 of the Revised Penal Code. Nakasulat dito that anyone who fails to render assistance to any persons whom he finds in an uninhabited place, wounded, or in danger of dying, is liable for abandonment of persons in danger. So, ibig sabihin pala, kapag meron kang nakita or meron kang nadaanan na namamatay na tao, hindi mo siya pwedeng iwan, hindi mo siya pwedeng iabando. Okay? You have the responsibility to render assistance dun sa tao na yon. And if you failed to do it, you will be held criminally liable and mabaviolate mo yung Article 275. Kaya sobrang importante na malaman natin yung mga duties and responsibilities natin as a Filipino citizen. Now, question. Ano ang nauna? Law or crime? Yan yung laging pinagtatalunan, kung ano nga ba talaga yung nauna. Kung law ba or crime. So, let's find out. Merong basic Latin maxims dito, which is nullum crimen, nulla poena sine lehi. In English translation, there is no crime when there is no law punishing it. Sa Tagalog, walang crime kapag walang batas na nagpaparusa sa isang aksyon. So obviously, ang sagot po ay law. Yes, nauna po ang law kesa sa crime. Kasi nga, there is no crime when there is no law punishing it. Paano ka makakapag-commit ng crime kapag walang sinasabi yung batas na na-violate mo ito? 'Di ba? No matter how wrongful, evil, or bad the act is, if there is no law defining the act, the same is not considered a crime. No matter how perverse or heinous an act is, kahit gaano pa kasama or kapangit yung act na ginawa mo, it is not considered a crime unless there is a law punishing it. Pag walang law na nagpapunish dun sa isang action, hindi siya matatawag na crime. Okay, so maliwanag. Pag tinanong anong nauna, law or crime, crime or law, ang sagot po ay law. Bakit? Because there is no crime when there is no law punishing it. Period. Let's now go to the sources of criminal law. We have three sources of our criminal law: the Revised Penal Code, Special Penal Laws, and the Presidential Decree. Okay? First is the Revised Penal Code. So, natapos na natin yung discussion about the Revised Penal Code, that it is the basic fundamental law that we have as of today. So, let's move forward na kay Special Penal Laws. Special Penal Laws, those are enacted by the Congress. Example dyan ay yung mga Republic Act. So, lahat ng Republic Act na meron dito sa Pilipinas, that is Special Penal Laws. Those enacted by our Congress. Ano ba kasi yung Congress? Okay, konting na lang definition about Congress. Congress, it is the lawmaking body of our government. Okay? And you have to take note as well that sa Congress, ang Congress ng Pilipinas ay bicameral. When we say bicameral, merong dalawang houses. First, the upper house, which is the Senate. Pangalawa is the lower house, which is the House of Representatives. Upper house, the Senate, yung mga Senado. Yung mga nasa lower house, yung House of Representatives, sila yung mga congressman, congresswoman na nare-represent yung kanilang mga distrito. That is the House of Representatives. Okay, ulitin ko. Our Congress is the lawmaking body of our government, and our Congress is bicameral, meaning it composed of two houses, the upper house, which is the Senate, and the lower house, which is the House of Representatives. And yung mga iniinak ng mga Congress natin ay tinatawag na Special Penal Laws. Example is the Republic Acts. What are the difference between the two sources of law, between the Revised Penal Code and Special Penal Laws? So, apart from the crimes penalized in the Revised Penal Code, several other pieces of criminal legislations have been passed. So, hindi lang yung mga crimes na nakasulat sa Revised Penal Code yung sinusunod at kinikilala natin. No, meron na yung mga several crimes na na-pass, that have been passed. Halimbawa, yung mga nagpe-penalize ng act such as illegal possessions and trafficking of dangerous drugs, money laundering, and illegal possessions of firearms. These laws are called the Special Penal Laws. Yung mga laws na to ay hindi na matatagpuan sa Revised Penal Code. That is Special Penal Laws. Okay? And there are certain differences between the crimes punished under the Revised Penal Code and the Special Penal Laws. In the Revised Penal Code, sa Revised Penal Code, the violations of crime listed here are referred as malainse, which means that the act is inherently evil or bad or wrongful in itself. Ibig sabihin, meron mang batas o wala na nagpaparusa dun sa act na yun, meron man o wala, alam nating lahat na yung action na yon or yung act na yon is evil talaga. Okay? Meron mang batas o wala na nagpaparusa sa act na yon, that is considered evil na. Okay? Dito sa Revised Penal Code, yung moral trait of the offender is considered. Kailangan yung moral trait is nakukonsider. This is why liability would only arise when there is criminal intent or negligence in the commission of the punishable act. On the other hand, violations of special penal laws are generally referred to as malum prohibitum or mala prohibita. Ibig sabihin, the act is wrong because it is prohibited. Nagiging masama lang yung isang act dahil ipinagbabawal. Pero hindi talaga siya wrongful in nature. Nagiging mali lang siya kasi ipinagbabawal siya according to the law. Pero kapag wala yung law na nagpo-prohibit dun sa act na yon, hindi mo yun makukonsidered as wrongful in nature. Walang criminal intent na kailangan para maging liable yung isang tao na makakapag-commit sa special penal laws. Hindi kailangan kung intention mo ba or hindi na gawin yung act na yon. As long as na-commit mo, nagawa mo yung pinagbabawal dun sa may special penal laws, you will be held criminally liable because the moral trait of the offender is not considered. No, it is enough that the prohibited act was voluntarily done. So that is the difference between the Revised Penal Code and special penal laws. Ulitin ko, sa Revised Penal Code, kino-consider mo yung moral intent. Okay? Kino-consider mo yung moral trait mo. Merong criminal intent. Dito naman sa special penal laws, hindi importante kung sinadya mo ba or hindi. Okay? The moral trait is not considered. Naintindihan po. Kapag hindi mo sinadya na gawin, parang nagawa mo lang siya nang hindi mo napansin, na hindi mo sinadya, ang sagot ng special penal laws, wala akong pakialam. As long as nagawa mo yung ipinagbabawal ng special penal laws, you will be held criminally liable. So that is the difference between Revised Penal Code
and special penal laws.
Okay? You have to take note po that penal means criminal. Pareho lang po yung meaning nun. Penal and criminal ay pareho lang. Next, pangatlong sources po is the presidential decree. This is law issued during martial law by Ferdinand Marcos. So, lahat po ng mga law na na-issue during the presidency of late President Marcos ay tinatawag po nating presidential decree.